Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Profit Minds podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Stephen Kirch, creator of the Profit Minds Growth System, a unique blend of profit growth, productivity acceleration, and building robust business process for scale. In every episode, I interview entrepreneurs and small business owners from around the world with a unique story to tell. You can find the show on YouTube, LinkedIn, Apple and Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and more. Hi, everyone. Today, my guest is Nancy Juetten, president and founder of Get Known, Get Paid. And today we'll be focusing on podcast guesting and the importance of not boring others with your bio. Welcome, Nancy.
Thanks, Dr. Kirch. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you on. Been looking forward to this for quite some time. So tell us your story. What is it that got you into this whole podcast guesting thing?
Well, it's a funny story, even if I do say so myself. I think podcast guesting scratches an itch that a lot of us have to be seen, heard, and celebrated for who we are and what we do. And I remember being 9 years old, feeling very unseen and unheard and uncelebrated in my own family. And my dad was an actor in Hollywood, and all the light shined on him, and the rest of us sort of had to fade into the wallpaper to survive. And so as a 9-year-old, I saw this commercial. How many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop? Remember this?
I love that commercial because you could never do it. You always bit.
You know, I'm a very tenacious girl. So I'm 9 years old. I take an afternoon on a Saturday and I figure out how many licks it takes. And I write a letter to the president of the Tootsie Pop Corporation to tell him that I figured it out. And I just had this sense of expectation that something important was going to happen for me. And what do you know, a few weeks later, I got this gilded certificate in the mail from the president of the Tootsie Pop Corporation. It said something like, very few people on earth know how many licks it takes to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop. And this certificate belongs to one of the few who do.
Wow.
So I'm 9 years old, and the president of a major corporation has responded to a letter I wrote with something that made me feel important. And I think I knew at that very moment that I was going to be using a pen to help other people feel important for the rest of my life. And that really did end up foretelling what was going to happen with my career, because I've been a publicist for big names and big names on the rise for decades and help people to get seen, heard, celebrated, and ultimately compensated for their winning ways.
That's cool. So you said a little bit about podcasting, but there's got to be a story between the 9-year-old Nancy and the 27-year-old Nancy that we see today.
Thank you. You can be my new best friend now. So, you know, there's ebbs and flows in the economy. 2008 was the Great Recession. That was a challenging time. Well, 2020 was also a very challenging time because COVID came to call. And any speaker, expert, or trainer who made their living on live stages or in-person scenarios found their calendar gone completely blank. And I was right there with them. And I thought to myself, what could I do as a publicist to be of contribution to people worldwide where they could broadcast their brilliance without even having to leave their house and create a revenue rush of product for their products, programs, and services. And so I quickly tuned in and honed in on podcast guesting for myself and quickly booked myself on 40 or 50 shows on a do-it-yourself basis. And I realized that I had a system that I could teach other people so that they could do this too. And so it was the great COVID-19 that was the catalyst for me to tune into podcast guesting as a way to serve in a challenging marketplace and to find a way to make money, even though I couldn't leave my house.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, the pandemic did a lot of interesting things to our lives. Some of them good, some of them not so good. mean, clearly for me, one of the gifts of the pandemic was, I used to spend about half of my day driving from one coffee meeting to another. And now you could say that's a benefit because I got to be with people, but it also meant that I was spending half of my day just driving around and not actually being productive. And now I can sit at my computer and do most of those meetings. In fact, even the clients that I have locally, most of the time we just meet on Zoom because it's quicker.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. And Jack Canfield, who is known as America's success coach and is the father of the Chicken Soup for the Soul series and has accomplished all kinds of amazing things. I heard him on a podcast say that there is no new normal, but he calls it a new better, because he, as a trainer and a speaker and someone who touches lives around the world, he can broadcast his brilliance from wherever he happens to be and still be at home to walk his dog, hug his kids, and have dinner with his wife. And that's a huge, huge lifestyle upgrade for people who are used to accumulating miles on their airport mileage plan or whatever it is that they were doing from driving from door to door. I think
Right.
there's many advantages and many silver linings. And podcast guesting is one of the great benefits for all of us, because we can all share what we have to say, what's special and different and preferred about it, from the comfort of our own internet laptop connection, and have our message carry far beyond what we could do over coffee anywhere in the United States or the world.
Yeah, that's so true. So where is it that aspiring podcast guests get stuck?
Well, I'll tell you, having written the book Bye Bye Boring Bio, both the first, second, and third edition, people really do get stuck on writing their bio so that they can be properly introduced to a host. I think a lot of people are under the misguided notion that hosts are interested in your entire little log cabin from Minnesota story, where it all started and everything that's happened in the 27 years in between. And that really isn't true. I think what a host wants is 50 words written in the third person that's conversational, relational, and packed with proof, so the audience can be sitting at the edge of their chair saying, oh boy, I can't wait to hear this guest. And it's surprisingly difficult for people to cull down everything they are and do in 50 words or less.
Yeah, I remember, I can't remember who it was, but there was an author who said, I wrote a 5,000 word essay because I didn't have time to write a 1,500 word one, right? It's very difficult to get your life distilled 50 words, really? Wow.
Well, and now that we have ChatGPT, I have to say, this has been a very exciting, disruptive, and illuminating time, because you can say to ChatGPT, excuse me, write a boring, benign, and unremarkable bio for Dr. Stephen Kirch, host of Profit Minds. And you can wait for a reply, and what you will get in response will let you know what a boring, benign, and unremarkable bio is, and you'll probably be laughing out loud. And then you can say, thank you very much. Now write a remarkable, memorable, and compelling bio for Dr. Stephen Kirch, host of Profit Minds, that's packed with compelling proof about why he is a top 1% podcast host and why he should be a guest on other top 1% shows. When you put that prompt in the ChatGPT, you get a completely different response, and chances are your jaw will drop because you didn't even realize how cool you were for school until you got the answer to that question.
Wow, that's really, I hadn't thought about, trying to have ChatGPT rewrite my bio.
You should try it just for fun.
I will.
And I'll tell you, usually it comes back and says things like the boring, benign, and unremarkable ones. I want to bring this up for a good reason. Sometimes people obsess about their bios and they ask me to read them, and I'm looking for the no-dos to try to wake myself up, because they're not that great. They're really not that great. If you don't know what a boring bio is, just do yourself a favor and ask ChatGPT. write a boring, benign, and unremarkable bio for your name here in 50 words or less in the third person. Those are the exact words you type into the prompt. I don't know how ChatGPT knows the answer, but she will come back and say, if it was a boring, benign, and unremarkable one, she'll say something like, Nancy Juetten has done a variety of things over the decades to serve people who wanted to do a variety of things, and she's not distinguished herself in any particular way. She does business from some city in the northwest of Washington and enjoys her life with her husband and her little dog. And you think to yourself, she sounds like a total bore, but I am not boring at all. If you ask her again to, pack a bio with powerful proof about the value I brought to entrepreneurs and audiences worldwide, you'll get a completely different answer. But it's only when you see your own boring bio that you get the wake-up call that you could do a whole lot better.
Wow. That's really a great idea. In fact, I'm speaking tomorrow or Wednesday of this week to an audience, and I'm sure they want a bio from me. So I'll just go to ChatGPT and I'll ask.
You should, and I can't wait to hear what it says, because the other thing you can do with ChatGPT, which is really fun, is you can say, knowing what you know about Dr. Stephen Kirch, what are 3 hot topics that he can address as a guest on a top 1% podcast that would be fodder for a juicy, delicious, and intoxicating conversation? And ChatGPT will suggest 3 hot topics that you could talk about. And you could even say, and now that we know what Dr. Kirch is going to be speaking about, can you generate 3 really powerful and strategic interview questions that he could answer that would lay the train tracks down so that the conversation would lead the audience to take the next best step in the guest direction? And ChatGPT will deliver the train tracks.
Wow. I'm blown away. This is really cool. No, I just hadn't thought about it. And so can you share a success story from one of your clients?
Oh, sure. The clients that I tend to work with are people who have a proven offer. They're already successful and they want to deliver their message further and farther, but without hiring an expensive booking agency. And so I teach them a 6P system so that they can be brilliant podcast guests. And I'll tell you about one of my clients in a moment, but those 6 steps are to prepare for the interview, which means you want to have a microphone and a decent background behind you, and you want to look good for the camera, and you want to look right at the camera, and you want to know what you want to say before you say it. You want to position yourself as an expert that would have value to bring to the podcast. You want to prioritize the correct shows where you would have value to bring. You would want to make a powerful pitch to suggest yourself as a great value contributor to the show. You would want to ping pong those listeners back into your ecosystem with your own unique call to action. And that is because why? You want to profit. So prepare, position, prioritize, ping pong, pitch, ping pong, and profit. Those are the 6 Ps. And so I'm happy to tell you about James Hipkin, who has a company that helps 6-figure business owners elevate their websites to be suitable to serve 7-figure goals. He knew that he didn't have the advertising wherewithal to promote himself with Facebook ads and other forms of paid advertising. And he knew that his unique and distinct point of view could be differentiating if he were a guest on a bunch of podcasts. So he mastered the 6P system with my support and subsequently booked himself on over 60 podcasts within a calendar year. That's like a podcast guest spot and a half a week.
Yeah.
And as a consequence, he ended up doing business with many hosts, attracting quite a few new leads to his service and quite a few new clients to his care. And now if you Google his name, James Hipkin, you find him straight away. because podcast guest spots live online indefinitely through the power of search engine optimization and a Google search. So he can repurpose all of those podcast guest episodes in all kinds of ways so that clients can be guided to build that bridge of trust with him even before they meet him. And that means that when they do get on the phone with him, the sales conversation is considerably shorter because people have already heard him. They know he's got the solution to problems that they want to solve, and they feel ready to buy. And I think that is just a wonderful success story.
Yeah, so let's say a little bit more about that. I mean, that's really interesting. Say a little bit more about how you prepare your topics. I mean, you said to ChatGPT, right? Go ask ChatGPT, but I'm sure there's a little more thought behind it when somebody works with you directly. How do you tease out of them the topic that's really going to land with the audience that they're speaking to? And does it vary from podcast to podcast?
Well, that's a really good question. So let's see if we can unpack that. Excuse me. Just as I demonstrated earlier that you can ask ChatGPT to create a boring, benign, and unremarkable bio for you. If you don't know what a boring and unremarkable topic is, you can ask ChatGPT to show you. And I'll just pull from air a couple of suggestions. How many coaches out there help other coaches attract clients? It seems like they're everywhere. I will help you get to $10,000 a month in revenue if you come to work with me. There's a million people that are making that promise. If the hot topic that you are suggesting is something that 10 other experts could speak about in the same exact way, you have missed the mark. You want to have some intrigue and some curiosity, what's new, what's compelling in your hot topics, and think about it from the standpoint of, would this host find this interesting personally so that he would want to have you on the show? And then the second part is, would the host's audience find this of value and of service to what they're curious about so that they would want to tune in? So if you're someone who says, I help people get unstuck to accomplish their purpose, well, join the club. There's 42,000 other people that teach the exact same thing. So what is specific, terrific, different, and preferred about the way that you do it? I'll give you an example. There are a lot of people that teach about the media one sheet and why it matters.
Mm-hmm.
And so a hot topic for me could be 3 uncommon and preferred ways to use ChatGPT to get podcast ready fast, and 1 thing never to do.
Ooh.
Then it's like, oh, you as the host know that there's a segment that could be built around 3 uncommon ways to use ChatGPT to get podcast ready fast. But the part about it that's most interesting, the ooh or the ah, is, and the 1 thing never to do. Because I think there was these books out there, Marketing for Dummies, Accounting for Dummies, Underwater Basket Weaving for Dummies. People would pick up these books because it struck a nerve within them. Like, please tell me that my marketing doesn't suck. Please tell me that I'm not a dummy. So when you put something in that says, and the 1 thing never to do, or the 1 surprising thing that you never thought of that could make all the difference, the intrigue and the curiosity takes the sizzle factor way high so that the host could say, yeah, I could see how I could build a segment around that. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, definitely. In fact, I had a coach who told me, he said, one of the challenges with ChatGPT, and I would guess you would echo this, is that you can wind up sounding just like everybody else if you don't engineer the prompts correctly.
Yes.
And so, so some of us like create courses for online, that kind of thing. And because ChatGPT, anybody can create a course, right? Anybody can create a course on, whatever it is, right? How you get more clients as a coach, something like that.
This is, I think, the great frontier for people who are actually good with words. and I've put myself in that bucket. To address the whole idea of your unique tone of voice and what you stand for and what you believe, there's a concept called seasoning the pan. Many of us have a cast iron skillet in our kitchen, and the more you cook with it, the more the pan absorbs the unique flavors that you've been cooking with, so that everything you cook out of that pan becomes magic. So if we're really serious about using ChatGPT to create content, we do ourselves and our audience a very distinct favor by first seasoning the pan at ChatGPT with who we are, what we stand for, what our tone of voice is, what we believe, even our sense of humor. So before I start any project for myself or any client, I'll think about, who is this person? What is special, different, and preferred about this person? Who are the 3 ideal clients that they most want to serve? And what outcomes can they welcome in juicy, specific, delicious detail? And then I'll ask ChatGPT, do you understand? In which case she will acknowledge, yes, I get it. And I'll say, well, knowing that, can you create something that sounds like Nancy Juetten wrote it, that da 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 da, and all of a sudden I get something that sounds just like me. One of the telltale signs I've noticed when people are not sophisticated with ChatGPT is they'll use it and they'll take exactly what came back and use it without any editing. And so when I see something that says, I hope this message finds you well, today I'm writing about blah, 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 I immediately know that it was a ChatGPT generated comment, and I am very quick to tune out. So if you're one of those people that is taking output as final copy, I hope that you will stop that as soon as possible, because people can be wise to what you're doing. And it doesn't take that much effort to put a little seasoning on the steak. But the seasoning on the steak is what really makes you special, different, and preferred. And that's ultimately why people will pay you the big bucks. If you're doing everything formulaically, you're probably getting a formulaic result.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
That's really insightful. In fact, this coach that I had said one of the things that you should ask yourself is, where's the place that you can ask, hey, everybody thinks X, but really it's Y or Z, right? So that's, so that that you're special because the vast majority of people think this, and that's what you're going to get out of ChatGPT. But because of your expertise, that doesn't really come out of ChatGPT. It doesn't come out of the vast sum of knowledge. It's not common thought. And I think that's exactly the kind of thing that you're pointing us to as well.
Well, I think that we all became thought leaders because we had original thoughts in our head that we thought could help and contribute to the success of other people. And so what I would say about that is, pour your heart out onto the page, open up vein, pour blood, give it your very best effort, like you would with anything that really matters. Let it sit for a few days. And if you feel that your copy, whatever you're writing, a bio, a media one sheet, a proposal for new business, an approach to joint venture with someone, you could write to ChatGPT and say, this is the best effort draft that I could come up with to capture this big idea. Could you take a look at this and see if you could make it shorter, more conversational, more punchy, more compelling, or draw out the benefits more clearly than I have already? And see what comes back. Because then what you're doing is you're taking your original content and you're asking a copy assistant to take a fresh look at it, and you can be discerning to determine if it is improved or not. More often than not, I get some pearls back from ChatGPT to make my copy shorter, punchier, and more conversational. And I think that's really valuable, because every word that I express, whether it's on a podcast or elsewhere, is really intended to create a relationship with someone. And if I'm not hitting the mark, if it feels too textbook, if it feels too formal, if it feels too academic, I know that I'm going to lose out on connecting with human beings that could be my clients. And so I choose to use ChatGPT as a copy assistant once I've already poured the value onto the page myself with my own original thoughts, because that's how the original thoughts can be refined, because writing, the art and craft of writing, is always in the rewriting.
That's brilliant. Thank you. So you have a special offer for our listeners?
I do. If you would like to be a brilliant podcast guest, chances are you're going to want to create a media one sheet that will showcase your brilliant bio, your hot topics, and your juicy interview questions. And I have a media one sheet gift template that you can use to have a beautifully designed media one sheet created in minutes, not hours, if you follow some of the suggestions that I've made during this podcast. So you can go to Media One Sheet now to download that free gift. And I promise you, you are going to be very excited to round it out. So you could possibly then be the next guest on Profit Minds with Dr. Stephen Kirch, or perhaps other shows that you've been jonesing for.
That's terrific. You know, this conversation went a very different direction from where I thought it was going to go when we started, but it's been wonderful. Thank you so much. If somebody wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to reach out?
The best way to reach out really is to go to mediaonesheetnow.com.
Just that way. Okay.
Because you're going to get real value there. And if you want to reach back to me by email, of course, reach back. I do done for you media one sheets for people who want my special touch on their message. And it's probably one of my hottest products on my menu. And I think the reason it is such a hot product is because I see, hear, and celebrate you beyond what you would expect, and come to the call prepared to have you feel seen, heard, and celebrated even before the first word is written. And people are gobsmacked to the degree that I get it right out of the gate. Do I use ChatGPT sometimes? Yeah, I do. But it's only to improve on the word-smithery that came out of my own brain and through my own pen in service to your success.
Oh, that's terrific. And that concludes our show. Thanks to our guest, Nancy Juetten of Get Known, Get Paid. I hope you learned something about podcast guesting and the use of ChatGPT. I know I did. Thanks for listening. You've been listening to the Profit Minds podcast. This is your host, Dr. Stephen Kirch. Please visit www.profitminds.net for other episodes or to contact me. Thank you for your positive feedback, comments, questions, and for sharing this show with others. Thanks for listening. Have a grateful day.